But not the way I eat chocolate. Too much ice cream.
I think it's perfect.
Isabel's coming, right? I think Isabel's coming.
No.
Well, and we have 3. Hi, Nancy. Okay. Hi, everybody on line 5. Just be 1 minute. Okay. So. Well, I don't have my phone. Maybe Jesus or someone could text Isabel or see if she's on her way. Okay. All right, I'm gonna do it. It's 6:01. It's now 6:01 p.m. and I'm calling to order this regular board meeting of the Sunnyvale School District Board of Education. This meeting is available in English and Spanish. Would the translator please give instructions on translation services available?
Buenas noches. Se utilizará la función de interpretación de Zoom para soporte en inglés y español. Todos los participantes de esta llamada deben seleccionar su idioma de preferencia haciendo clic en el idioma correspondiente cuando el anfitrión active la función de interpretación. Dicha función se encuentra en el panel de herramientas en el icono del globo terráqueo. El modo de interpretación para esta reunión será el simultáneo. Gracias por su atención y colaboración. Good evening. The Zoom interpretation feature will be used in this Zoom meeting for English and Spanish support. All participants on this call must select their language of preference by clicking the language when the host turns on the interpretation feature. This is found in the world icon located on your feature panel. Interpretation for this meeting will be conducted simultaneously. Thank you for your attention and collaboration.
Thank you.
Isabel's ready to.
Okay, thank you. Well, we're just gonna start because we have a quorum, we have 3, so we can begin. Let's see, please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. Okay, it's item 2, approval of the agenda. If there's any member of the public who would like to speak on the approval of the agenda, please use the raised hand feature now. Seeing none, board, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I move to approve tonight's agenda.
I second that.
Thank you. Any discussion about the agenda? Seeing none, let's vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The chair votes aye, and with that, the motion passes. We're on to item 3, public comment on study session items. So the study sessions, oh, sorry, am I off?
Go, fine.
Okay, the study session tonight is on Sunnyvale School District Curricular Materials with Christina Valentine, Director of Curriculum Instruction and Assessment. So before we begin, if there's anyone who would like to comment on this topic, please use the raised hand feature now. Okay, Sina, so I'm not going to say any of that. Ms. Valentine, the floor is yours.
Thanks. Good evening, board. It's not on.
Sorry about
I can definitely see. I had it. Good evening, board, public, colleagues. So, curricular materials. At the last board meeting, I talked about supplemental materials. And at that time I said, in Sunnyvale, we really work to teach children, not curriculum, not subjects. We use the California state standards to guide what we're supposed to be teaching in terms of a robust, rich curriculum. But we know that no one curriculum is the be all end all of learning and instruction. That's why we have teachers who are artists, really work with the art of teaching in terms of really knowing our students, their needs, and making sure that all students are learning. The list that you received is a broad overview of our English language arts, Spanish language arts, mathematics, history, social studies, and science curriculums. So those are just 4 of our core content areas, broad picture overview. But to get this discussion started, I wanted to show you a video about how we just are generally working on approaching curriculum. It's from Universal Design for Learning, UDL. It talks about just general approaches to learning, which are aligned with our best practices. We really want to ensure that all students are learning, and this is a good overview. And thank you, Mike, for recommending it. I was working with the principals at Instructional Leadership Team earlier this week, and Mike said, hey, I think we should use this video. I think it's really helpful in terms of setting context.
This teacher needs to meet a curriculum goal, and she's got a very diverse group of students. And so does this teacher. And this one. Most do. In fact, research shows that the way people learn is as unique as their fingerprints. What does this mean for teachers of today? Classrooms are highly diverse, and curriculum needs to be designed from the start to meet this diversity. Universal Design for Learning is an approach to curriculum that minimizes barriers and maximizes learning for all students. Whoa, that's a fancy term. Universal Design for Learning. Let's unpack it a bit. Let's think about the word universal. By universal, we mean curriculum that can be used and understood by everyone. Each learner in the classroom brings her own background, strengths, needs, and interests. Curriculum should provide genuine learning opportunities for each and every student. Now let's think about the word learning. Learning is not one thing. Neuroscience tells us that our brains have 3 broad networks. One for recognition, the what of learning, one for skills and strategies, the how of learning, and one for caring and prioritizing, the why of learning. Students need to gain knowledge, skills, and enthusiasm for learning, and a curriculum needs to help them do all 3. But every learner is unique, and one size does not fit all. So how do we make a curriculum that challenges and engages diverse learners? This is where the word design comes in. A universally designed building is designed to be flexible and to accommodate all kinds of learners, with and without disabilities. It turns out that if you design for those in the margins, your building is better for everyone. Curb cuts and ramps are used by people in wheelchairs, people with strollers, and people on bikes. Captioning on TV serves people who are deaf, people learning English, people in gyms, and spouses who get to sleep at different times. UDL takes this idea and applies it to the design of flexible curriculum. UDL goes beyond access because we need to build in support and challenge. So how do we use the UDL framework to make learning goals, methods, materials, and assessments that work for everyone? First, ask yourself, what is my goal? What do I want my students to know, do, and care about? Then ask, what barriers in the classroom might interfere with my diverse students reaching these goals? To eliminate the barriers, use the 3 UDL principles to create flexible paths to learning so that each student can progress. Number 1, provide multiple means of representation. Present content and information in multiple media and provide varied supports. Graphics and animation, highlight the critical features, activate background knowledge, and support vocabulary so that students can acquire the knowledge being taught. Number 2, provide multiple means of action and expression. Give students plenty of options for expressing what they know, and provide models, feedback, and supports for different levels of proficiency. Number 3, provide multiple means of engagement. What fires up one student won't fire up another. Give students choices to fuel their interest in autonomy. Help them risk mistakes and learn from them. If they love learning, they'll persist with challenges. And remember, always keep in mind the learning goal. Get rid of barriers caused by the curriculum and keep the challenge where it belongs. And that's it. Okay, quick recap. Show the information in different ways. Allow your students to approach learning tasks and demonstrate what they know in different ways, and offer options that engage students and keep their interest. Universal design for learning equals more opportunities for all. For more information on UDL, go to www.task.org.
So although we had some video challenges there, the way they designed the video with closed captioning did give us access to the video, even despite the sound. But that's a great example of how we really want to design instruction in our classrooms, that it isn't about the curriculum, it's about knowing why what and why we're teaching, having clear objectives, knowing our students and the assets that they bring into our classrooms, and then adjusting to meet their needs. So that being said, I know that this is discussion time for you all.
Thank you. Okay, no, I didn't. Okay, thank you so much. We already, welcome Isabel. We already did the public comment on this feature. So is there any discussion that any of the board members would like to start with as a starting point, or?
Let's see. I do have some comments and questions. I don't have to be the first one. Let's see. Oh, this is not the one. Well, for example, do we have a specific curriculum for music, or each teacher makes their own? That would be one. What are we using for accelerated math, and do we have anything for accelerated math in the lower grades that is not the one in middle school? Yes.
Yeah, why don't we just one?
Yeah, so in terms of music curriculum, it looks different at elementary and middle school based on the structure. So at middle school, our teachers, Mr. Anchetta and Mr. Scott, it's like, oh, I'm pretty impressed that I pulled out names. Two really skilled musicians who have really built music programs at both sites. They designed the curriculum based on the courses that they teach. So like the orchestra course looks a little bit different than band, looks a little bit different than ukulele. So they designed it based on their expertise and their past experience as musicians. At the elementary school, we really do work with Starting Arts. There's a partnership that we have with an outside agency that provides arts curriculum for classrooms with artists. That's the advantage. Like as a teacher, I might not be the best singer. I'm talking about myself. I can't really sing, but that way my students would get the experience of working with somebody who is more musically talented. I would probably take those lessons as a teacher and bridge them into other areas. And in addition, music at elementary levels shouldn't be only at one time, right? It's developmentally appropriate for our kids to be singing throughout the day. Like for me, I will remember things if I sing. So teachers do incorporate song and chants throughout the day. So a good example of that could be applying things like GLAD strategies, guided language acquisition design, where students are chanting and singing to remember information.
Do we have how much art are the kids getting right now with to studying arts? I know that, I don't know, different levels the teachers use art as a media for teaching their lessons in different ways, but how much art curriculum are the kids getting?
Yeah, so my understanding right now, and like every year shifts a little bit, so if I'm not specific, then I can look back and get more details to you, is that we have 3 arts wheels with Starting Arts. So there's a music wheel, a drama wheel, and a dance wheel. And then each of those are 6 weeks long. 6 weeks long.
Okay. And they come once a week?
And they come once a week.
Okay.
You guys could turn on your microphones, please.
Yes, of course. Sorry about that. Okay. Do we have ever done anything like, well, we've been talking with other districts in California and see how they deal with different similar problems to what we have. One of many programs that we saw is like a recovery day or something that some schools have, where they have like an extra day or afternoon curriculum to take the kids on catching up whatever they need, whatever the needs are. And in one in particular, they did like they have like one of all the elementary school, they have like a Saturday thing when they have teachers and the kids just drop by and do homework or do whatever during the day.
That was a middle
extra
school.
curriculum.
That was one middle school, and
That was a middle school?
and then the other, that AP went and did another middle school when the other AP became a principal.
Oh,
And did a,
okay.
so
that's a
it was
middle
two
school.
schools, it was like a site-by-site thing.
Yeah, so they have like a recovery curriculum for kids who are behind, and some people put it like in the afternoons, or some people do like a Saturday, and then the sites come to this place, they get invited and they catch up.
So I think the question is around like what possible intervention time periods exist for students?
Yes, like if we can do like, do we have, exactly, the experience about for kids for catching up outside the regular hours, because maybe it hasn't been enough, whatever they have until 2 p.m.
Yeah, so should I'll start with middle school first in terms of possible intervention as well as acceleration and enrichment opportunities. So at both middle schools, during the flex time at Columbia Middle School and also AST time, academic support time at SMS, that's a time period where students can receive intervention services from classroom teachers or from additional staff. So our direct student support, DSS TOSAs, that might be a time when they do intervention with specific students. So that's part of our middle school model, in addition to teachers providing intervention in the regular period, right? So in the 50-minute period that teachers would intervene and scaffold in that time period, as well as provide open-ended learning opportunities, right? Like we want students to have access at all levels, but also be able to take their learning in lots of different ways and places. And then the last piece that I want to mention about middle school and intervention time periods is our sixth graders, because they have an additional, middle school bell schedules are complicated, because they have an additional half a period, I'm going to call it that. They also receive a double dose in either English language arts or math over the course of the year. So that's what the time periods look like at middle school. And of course, our teachers and our DSS TOSAs, our instructional coaches, and our administrators work to make sure that our students have intervention and enrichment opportunities. At the elementary school, what we've been working on is the workshop model. So the workshop model is a process by which teachers teach mini lessons, release the students to work and apply independently, and then the teacher pulls groups for intervention, for enrichment, but basically that time is targeted for a smaller audience for a specific skill set. In addition to that, some schools may have something like win time, where everybody, what I need time, where across like a grade level, students may switch between classrooms to get what they need. That might be time when a support provider like a DSS TOSA or a paraeducator might push into the classroom, but it allows for some flexibility based on student need. That's some examples.
Do we have, I didn't see their curriculum around electives. There is a
So at the middle school, our electives teachers typically create their curriculum. We do bring our elective teachers together from both middle schools to collaborate and also talk with each other, like in terms of determining best practices, getting new ideas, and they also continue to pursue their own professional development outside, because it's, I'll just keep using music as an example. Joe Kelly at Fremont High School, Warren Scott and Charles Anchetta all know each other. They do talk about just generally music curriculum and instruction, and then also pathways into the high school.
So for those classes, then do they have a budget for curriculum they can purchase for their students, like to support the learning? Not necessarily music, but I'm thinking of the other electives, whether it's art or, you know, like, I don't know if there's science electives or whatever, like, I don't know what, I don't know exactly what electives they
Forensics,
are, but
forensics
like,
is a
are
science
they,
elective.
do you know what I mean? Like, they're, like, do they have, is there a budget for them to like do some choosing to support that, or do they, like, how does that curriculum get chosen? And I mean, if they're the one choosing it because it's for their, it's fluid and everything, like, are they supported by the district in any way for that, or?
So my understanding, and please correct me, is that they work with their sites on the site budget to determine like what materials needs they may have, like what, like for music, like what music books they might need for the students. But they work, my understanding is that they work with their site. That was my experience as well.
There's a former principal who's nodding behind you.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah. And just to add a little bit of, if they have special, I'm getting feedback, I'm sorry.
We don't hear it. You're the
Okay,
one
well,
who-
I'll just keep talking. But if there's something unique and different, they'll send that to the district office.
Was that clarifying? That was just a clarifying question on your question. I'm not trying to cut you off. Did you find what we did?
Yeah. I'm logging in on my.
Okay. Did you want to ask about the performing arts?
Yes, because I was interested in the curriculum of performing arts, and there have been, if we have, think about expanding our curriculum in art and performing arts as a media to learn, all the other classes.
It was that guy at AEC, right?
Yes,
What's his
the
name?
guy at AEC, Rafael Oremos or Oremos, I forgot his last name.
Okay.
But yeah, the book I gave you.
Yeah.
Aguilar?
No, but I think
Yeah.
Richard,
No, the movie star though. There was a movie star who was involved with them.
There's a movie star who wants to teach in our
Almost.
district.
Almost.
Did you see that one?
Did you see that one last year?
No, I was joking that a movie star wanted to teach in our district. I got excited.
Yes, no, yes,
No, they do want to
they
teach in our
have,
district.
and actually it's very economical, we were looking, because we were talking with 2 other districts that are using this program, but you know, they are adding a curriculum inside the classroom with the regular teachers. They train the teachers, they bring everything, and during the whole year, they come for 34 weeks or 32 weeks, and the idea then is to do a documentary, but in the meantime, they learn composition, they have to read scripts, they have to, they have to tell their own stories, they have to compose their own story, they have to build everything all the way to the end when they do a documentary about their life, and it's very empowering for the kids, and they also have bilingual programs, and that's one example, and they have data that how many points the kids compare in the same district with the school that have and that has not this same.
So like just to, I
That's
think,
like one example of a great curriculum or solutions that are out there that we go
well, I think,
try it.
I think like what, I think like what, another way of like looking at what, to build on what you're saying is like there's probably some, just like you were saying in the universal design, that there's some things that like it doesn't really quite reach kids. So the really engaging programs of choice that we have, like the programs of choice that are like Juntos or Explorer, where they're like really, the scores are basically reflecting that the kids are engaging in a certain way. Some of the other programs, they're bringing in things like, there's a fancy word, there's a word for it, and I'm blanking on it, but it's like, Jeff, what is your school? It's Metro Ed, but it's like,
Career technical education,
what is it?
CTE,
CTE, which is what?
career technical education.
Career Technical Education. So thank you so much.
Sorry, I didn't have a microphone on.
Yes, like bringing in more career technical education or bringing in more, I think Nancy's brought up in a meeting before about bringing in more people, like maybe partnering with Vargas, or when people partner with Lakewood, about bringing some real scientists here or real engineers in, or things like that. And that's what this program would do, kind of in a box sort of thing.
Yeah.
This was what we were talking about. So it's not like I don't necessarily think that, maybe we have the money and maybe we would want to look at it, but I think the idea is like where are the gaps in our curriculum, like where there's an opportunity to infuse something else into it that would like reach more kids who are maybe not getting reached by now. Like, do we know where the gaps are? And
I think that kind of also speaks a little bit to the introduction, the
Mhm.
UDL, where it's kind of like bringing the students' talents or strengths or allowing them to explore different strategies on how they develop as learners. I mean, it's almost like allowing the students to help, identify how to surpass those gaps and holes, just being able to be willing to explore those. Am I wrong? Or
No, I think you're right on the money there. And the piece that I want to highlight is the students bringing forth the gaps that may exist, right? So there's a piece where we might, as educators, think, okay, there's a piece here that may need to be fulfilled, or like this is where we're not meeting students' needs. But this is actually where the student voice is so important, and that exists at all levels. Like I know 4-year-olds that will tell you what they like. I know 8-year-olds that will tell you what they like. I know 14-year-olds, and of course my own children. But they have ideas of what is engaging to them in learning and what isn't engaging to them in learning, and that's some of the work that we've been doing around like just connecting UDL principles, because it is aligned with best practices. So we had been working in this area. We're just working to like develop an understanding around UDL. In addition, these are strategies that support our multilingual learners and build student choice and voice.
Well, and I think those strategies are applicable with any curriculum,
Mhm.
correct? So I think the issue with like, when we say we want to empower student voice or community voices, I don't think that the communities are going to AEC or going around to other schools, and I don't think they know necessarily what is on offer at other places. You know what I mean? Like, I think if you said to somebody and you said, well, hey, you're gonna get a Academy Award winner in here and they're gonna teach you sound set design, and your kids are gonna be super engaged, and by the end of the year, they're gonna do X, Y, and Z, I think maybe parents would go, wow, that's really a cool opportunity, and maybe it's for summer school, or maybe it's for the school year or whatever. Or if you said, oh, hey, actually we're gonna have like, was it Morgan Hill has a mathematics, they integrate mathematics and music. They have a whole mathematics and music school. And so like, I'm not saying we should develop one of those or that that's what we should do, but I'm just saying like, I think when we say, well, we wanna let the kids decide, I don't even know that the kids
know what are the options or what they want, yeah.
would even think
up
about
to a
that,
point.
I mean, they think about whether or not they want to sing it, but I don't know. So I really appreciate the curriculum we get. I mean, the curriculum we have is enormous and massive and flexible. Okay, just one second, Nancy. But the issue is like it's very robust. Like we don't have a 4 or 5 hour English block. And we don't have a 4 or 5 hour math block, and that's like how much they give you, right? Like you could be doing math all day with the math we have. So it's not like we don't have the things, the stuff, but I think it'll be great when we get into the data and we see like what, like where some of the needs are, which I just heard they're not releasing until later, which like kind of means maybe after the election or something, I don't know. Because Tony Thurman's up for re-election, or I don't know what it is, but it just seems like they give us a lot, but it's just hard to know what kids are really gonna connect with and what they need.
And so we're talking about the
Wait,
design thinking, oh, yeah.
Nancy, and then we can go to Tasha after that. Nancy?
Yes, I wanted to, there was a question that Isabel asked, but I don't think it was answered. And that's about exploration within mathematics and whether or not we have accelerated learning opportunities and gateways at various different levels, not only at middle school. And I don't think that question was actually answered.
Mm-hmm.
So if you could address that, please.
Thank you. I must have missed that one. I mean, I know I missed it. Yeah, so at elementary school, and actually at our middle schools too, we're working on what we refer to as low floor, high ceiling tasks within the mathematics instruction. So I think there's sometimes a perception that an accelerated math pathway is for certain kinds of students. And we all have skills in mathematics, and we may have, as adults, have had prior experiences that like color how we view mathematics. That being said, like when math is hands-on, when it is engaging, when it's real life problem solving and not just learning how to do the algorithm, like the division table drop down, but it really is like how do we use division application? Then students can take that lots of different ways and take it further. And that is the advanced mathematics piece, which is like, how do you learn mathematics and then apply it? And what we know about people who pursue like higher degrees in mathematics, it's not the algorithm part, it's the thinking through, it's the problem solving skills, it's the being able to apply learning that really keeps them in that field. So that's what we do at elementary. Like we're working on making sure that there's lots of avenues for students to take things, and I can work on future examples at another time.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that was covered, because that's been a concern from the parent community for quite some time, and that each child, wherever they're at, has an opportunity to continue that logic stream and inquiry in a mathematical way is important.
Thanks for bringing that up. And what I didn't mention is, the mathematics pathway at middle school. If we look at the Math 6 standards, the Math 7 standards, what it aligns to is previously like old like algebra standards. Like the math demands in our California standards are rigorous, and those are for what parents may see as like a basic course, but it is very rigorous and challenging for students.
Tasha?
Yeah, and I want to build on what Christina just mentioned, and often, especially when we speak to our communities, we look for a course that says advanced math, or we look for a gifted math class, or whatever it is. I just want to reiterate, it's not about the label of the class, it's about the instruction, how that content is being presented, and the opportunities we're affording each student kind of where they are, because you can extend those learning opportunities even for some of our students who might not have a particular algorithm, as Christina has talked about, but in other portions of the same mathematics that we're teaching, they're ready to be accelerated. And so it's really about knowing where each student is, so you can accelerate in the areas that they need to be accelerated in, and then go in and hone in on the other particular areas. So I just wanted to kind of reemphasize that, because acceleration should be happening in different aspects for different students at different times.
Okay, so I have a question, but it's actually like a Jeremy question, because it's a Jeremy and Jonathan and Watts question. Because how can we get data, like Jeff asked for a while ago, on our students, how they're doing in high school, particularly math, because there is some feedback from parents that like, well, Cupertino High School, and it might just be a rumor, or Cupertino Middle School and Cupertino's system goes into Fremont Union High School District, and they have an accelerated math in middle school, they have multiple pathways, and that's just their curriculum. And they're more prepared for high school math than our students. Cupertino has a different demographic, they have different everything, but then in general, like we need to get information from the high school district of like how our curriculum, how our universal design, how all of our stuff, how that's preparing all of our kids. Because I just feel like they came back and they told you that they're like, well, we can't do it because we don't know who's who and what they're taking and whatever. Like, are they taking just the A through G? Are they getting knocked down into remedial classes?
And before Jeremy responds, I would add, you said how our kids are being, well, I would add how our students are being received, right? So it's a two-way street, right?
Yeah.
So our kids are prepared in certain ways. Is the high school district prepared to receive our kids and meet them where they are? Which is, there's two parts to that. So anyway.
Sure.
Well, right. Thank you for that, Mike. And I was also going to say that I don't know that we have data that actually substantiates that our students are not performing where they need to and to what degree. Dr. Gallagher has mentioned that to us, and that is an area we're looking at with the high school, and to have some data talks and be able to get that information. So we don't have that to date, but it is an area we plan to look to and learn a little bit more about. And we have some upcoming meetings with the high school.
No, and I know, and I think it's baloney. I think that they're, as my Midwestern father would say, I think it's baloney, because I think they're just saying that they're saying that they don't have a way to get data because they don't have STAR testing anymore, and they have something else. And it's like, you can tell by what classes they're in. We could give them a sample of students, or I don't know what we could do.
I kind of hear what I agree with you. But I think we can actually solve that problem by tracking our alumni and giving them a list of students saying, how are they doing?
Right.
And that would take away a lot of, go ahead.
Yeah, no, so everyone is saying that everything that we've been trying to put into place. I even had conversations with Christina last year, because the high school district does ask us for a lot of data constantly. It seems to be a one-way flow. So I think what we can do is, and I think Jonathan Watts talked about it last time, we're really starting to get a handle on our own data here. And to just point, Board Member Arnett's point, that we want to make sure that we can actually get some cohorts. We don't need the whole shebang right now. Let's identify some key focal students, get their SSID numbers, because that's the thing that perseveres throughout their entire education career through CalPADS, and then we can start to track that. But I think Mike touched on it before, like we want to start having these conversations, even district visits to Fremont High School, and it's just really starting that communication piece. But let's just go in with 100 pieces of data, and we can take these track this down, and we can start digging in.
And to help us interpret that data, it might be helpful to learn what their basic philosophy is too. Are they behind the whole equity in education?
Yep.
Or are they, you're saying yes, do you agree? Or yes,
I agree, because it's whatever, cipher they're using in order to place too, right? Because that's the missing function of this.
Or are they even behind UDL? I mean, are they even like starting that initiative among their teachers? I'm asking more questions now.
Yeah.
But the thing is, well, that's what, something, yeah. I think there is the will, because at least we've been talking with a couple, at least 3 different people on the board there, and they say that they want to communicate more. We told them about
Just Naomi
Rosen, and we say we need more communication, and they agree, and they say that's basic, because they came back to us, when we talk about our kids there, they were also very critical. And then we say, well, we need then collaboration and we need data. And so far they say they want to just get on this as soon as possible.
So I think, I really appreciate this overall list. And I think that for me, I've had some discussions with a couple of teachers. One of them was Anna Thomas at Fairwood. I had a discussion with her, and she gave me a couple of resources, and I just forwarded them as information to the board a few months at the end of last year. And it was regarding this idea of what does our English instruction look like? more of an emphasis on literature, an emphasis on phonics, and like how does it dovetail together? And she gave me some, you know, she's doing reading intervention in kindergarten over at Fairwood, or was last year, and she gave me some very like concrete examples, and she explained it very well. I cannot re-articulate what she told me, but it definitely made sense to me. But I feel like with both language arts and math, because they're such a huge part of our elementary curriculum, and especially as math is getting kind of re-investigated, we're being asked as trustees, are you adopting those new, new math curriculum? And we're saying, well, it's a new framework and we're gonna learn more about it. So I think like it should be on our, like as we're planning the year ahead, we should definitely get, maybe some of our study sessions could be around curriculum, really understanding like what we have and the why and like the thinking, because we weren't all here when some of it got approved and there's more coming, right? And just kind of how it all works together actually. So
And I think what you're describing might be a study session around curriculum, but it also might be more, it might also include instructional practices and meeting students' needs. Because it's not really about like, this is the one thing that's going to be the magic bullet. We look at curriculums closely, we evaluate them based on like the research behind each curriculum, and all curriculums will say they're research-based. But we also look and see like, for our community, how does this fit? What is our teacher input into the curriculum? Like we work through a process with a lot of community partners whenever we adopt a curriculum. And also we know that there's a lot more that goes into instruction in the classroom. I wanted to just loop back around to the piece around math adoptions. So the math framework has been a work in progress at the state level. It's currently waiting to be approved. But other people like me across the state were hopeful that the math framework would be approved this last summer. And then following approval of like frameworks or standards changes, then that's when the state typically approves curriculum for us to examine, and then we move forward. That being said, there are places that have been looking at curriculums to see if that would meet students and teachers' needs in terms of accelerating math growth across the state. We know that math is a focus area as well as in Sunnyvale. So right now we're in the exploratory phase, like what curriculums are there? What are we seeing be successful in our district? Because there are a lot of highlights in pockets across the district with innovation happening in different pockets. Different teachers, different grade level teams have seen success in terms of implementing strategies, curriculums that introduce low floor, high ceiling, more process oriented, more real life application math that has made a difference.
do you think we have the curriculum we need to support our Spanish speaking students and their families? Do you feel like we have the curriculum we need, or do you feel like that we have the curriculum we need and we just need to change how we use it? Or like an assumption there is that we're doing lots of things, but we're not meeting their needs in terms of like helping them, helping them reach their grade level goals, honestly.
It's not kind of
I mean,
it's
just
not
by
a bigger
test
picture.
yeah.
I mean, like, it's not only just curriculum, but like instructional devices, right?
Sure.
I mean, there's curriculum is, you drop a book in a room, it doesn't, won't educate a child.
Right.
So I mean, it's a little bit of a combination of everything. I know there's a lot of thought that goes into the curriculum, I'm trying to think, not necessarily how to, certainly speak to it, I'm just kind of, I don't know how fair it would be at this point, just the curriculum alone, but.
No, I'm saying like, is there, I mean, do you think it's the curriculum, or do you think it's a combination of everything, or like, are we missing something? Is there something we like forgot to look at, or like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm just asking.
Yeah, I don't.
Oh,
So
Tasha?
you can go ahead, Christine. I was just gonna say, I know we keep saying the same thing, but I want to bring us back there again. I would say we could have all the curriculum that everyone tells us to have, and we probably still wouldn't have it as far as curriculum goes, because each time we get a new set of kids, new set of experiences, we have to assess where they are. As far as the core or the framework of what we need, I think we have. I think Christina's been doing some research with regards to mathematics and other areas on how to better support our Juntos program and at the middle school. And so some of that work is in progress for the work that she's doing and the research with her team that she's working on. So, I mean, do we have everything we need? I don't know that we can say that. Do we feel we have what we need to begin and provide students what they need to be proficient and on par? I do feel we have that.
We're not, I mean, just like, I mean, we're just not, for our Spanish speaking kids, we're just not meeting their needs right now. I mean, that's just the fact. And so like, I'm just wondering if, you know, maybe that's something that the equity team will start going through when they start looking at, you know, I mean, I don't know what the equity team will start with first, but like it will probably be on their list, like just like HR and other things. And it's not a criticism of like any particular curriculum, you know, anything on this list. And I know, you know, it was all tried by teachers and we went through our process. But if we just kind of step back and we say, well, how come it's not working? Like, is there anything about this that isn't working for our Spanish speaking students or who are heritage speakers of Spanish, who aren't in Juntos, who are whatever, like just all across the district, like those are the kids that we, you know, we're focusing on this year. So I was just wondering if they, you know.
Yeah, I'll start big picture and then I'll move down to like smaller. So like in terms of our Latina families and our students, like we know that they're historically underserved populations, not only in school, but also just generally in social systems and structures. And those are pieces that have impacts, and also we have control over what happens in our classrooms. So we really focus on where we can make an impact. So I just wanted to mention that because there is the whole society and like contribution, like how that impacts. That being said, you know, this year, again, this is like a conversation we just had at ILT earlier this week. We had the shelter in place year where our teachers worked very hard and connected with families, and also the format was via camera. So that didn't lend itself to a lot of language models between students. Like there isn't the opportunity to watch and see what's happening in the classroom, to follow other models. So that year definitely impacted our multilingual students who speak another language at home more, just because they might not have had as many models of language. Last year was unique and special in a lot of ways, and also COVID related absences that were outside of our control. Like we didn't dictate what those rules were. Those also impacted learning. So coming into this year, we've been working really hard on re-norming, like we talked about football a little bit in cabinet, but re-norming like our best practices. Like how can we reestablish learning and language goals? What is the purpose of that? How does that impact students? How does that impact our instruction? What are the opportunities for students to talk in the classroom? Students that are talking and listening, generating lots of language, those are the students that are learning. Sometimes a good example of that is if you go to the gym and worked out with the trainer and the trainer was doing all the exercise, then who's getting the workout? The trainer. So in the same lens, if the teacher is doing all the work in the classroom, but the teacher's getting the workout, but our students are. So we're really working on really elevating the amount of language that is in our classrooms, and that's just re-norming for us after the last 2 years. So I think it's more around, it's not around curriculum, it's around rebuilding our knowledge of instructional practices, highlighting what is working for us and why, and then building on those strengths.
Yeah, I agree, and I love everything you just said. And I would add to that probably the cameras built and going through the pandemic together built a lot of empathy between teachers and families, mm-hmm. right? Like you get much more awareness of like what's going on and like, but you know, the deficits are just wider. When I came on this board in 2018 and I was getting interviewed for endorsements from all these different groups, the first number they showed me was our Spanish speaking, our English learners, our Spanish speaking, the Hispanics, Latino groups. That is the first number they showed me, and they said, what are you going to do about that? And I was like, well, I'm gonna do what I can as one of 5 people, and I'm gonna be, and then we had one of our first meetings on the board, and Reed Myers looked at me and she said, oh, it's been like that since I've been here, and I've been here 8 or 9 years. And so, like, this issue with Spanish-speaking families has been going on in this district and in this state and in this country for a long time. And I just feel like, you know, whenever our equity team goes through things, if we can go through our curriculum with the equity lens, like just like you said in the what the video was trying to say to us, I was reading it. I think it said, you know, you plan for people on the edges of things, and then the that will, if you plan for them, then it will help everyone. I think the people on the edges of our lens are probably our Spanish speaking students. And so I just you know, I would just like hope that we could look at our curriculum one more time for them.
Absolutely.
So
I guess the thing I would say about that is, that's absolutely right. I mean, I think we all agree with everything that we're all saying. And it's a matter of emphasis. I think for our students, our Latin students, it's harder for teachers because the off-the-shelf curriculum that we can get isn't directed at them necessarily. So our teachers have to work harder, right? And so we need to support them. The other thing that I fear is that we make, and I think we've been making this point, if it's not just a curriculum issue, and sometimes we fall into a trap as educators of thinking, if we can just find the right curriculum, it's kind of like Jeff said, like you can put the curriculum on the floor of the room, it doesn't teach the kids. It really is instruction practice. So the work that we've been doing now with equity walks that have started this week, all the work around culturally responsive teaching that we're doing, like that is more than half of it. I mean, it's a huge percentage of it, to start opening the lens like you're suggesting. So I think we're doing the right work, but I think what we have to do is continue to assess. And yes, absolutely, when we look at curriculum, when it's time to adopt, realize that that's not the answer, but of course look through an equity lens at that.
And what else are we doing to bring the families and the community as partners, really, with respect and dignity from both sides? That, you know, that also not just the kids, the families, everybody get involved in the process. That how are we improving it? How much collaboration we're getting from the parents? How much reach out? How much part of the family the teachers feel? For example, I don't know how to express that.
And I heard
to be part of.
I heard a statement yesterday, and you'll probably know where it came from. I think it's Rachel Bacosa, who said 50% of the curriculum walks in the classroom every day with the students. Is that Rachel?
It actually is it's in culturally responsive pedagogy, but
Okay.
yeah, that's the.
Well, I'm going to give Rachel credit.
Okay.
Okay. But if you think about, like, it walks in with the students, but are we recognizing it? I think that's what you're saying. Like, there's their background, their experiences. We need to be tapping into that to meet them and to meet their needs.
Yeah, and the kids are gonna be way more applied if they feel like their family are respected, if they're part of it, and the parents are gonna be more aware if they feel like they're welcome as part of the educational community.
Mm-hmm.
It's a whole circle.
Yeah.
It also, well, no, I don't wanna finish this part about the curriculums. Do you have anything else?
It's still curriculum.
This part? Yeah, no, that I was also thinking.
We got 5 minutes.
Parallel, but not this, how much of, in general, what is called ethnic studies, but
Oh, yeah.
is inside our social studies, and how much equity lens and real, well, maybe what is real or not, but how much of these ethnic studies are we integrating into our social studies or history and everything we're doing at all levels, not just.
Yeah, let me see if I can, if this is going to address it, and I'm going to break it down into 3 parts. So one part is the ethnic studies curriculum or framework that the state adopted is really for the high school level. Like that's where the adoption of the framework came. So I just wanted to think that, because there isn't an ethnic studies framework for middle school or elementary. That being said, we did adopt a new history, social science curriculum in elementary last year, TCI, and it has a name past that, but we refer to it as TCI. But one of the criteria when we adopted TCI was to ensure that it was culturally celebratory and representative of our different populations. Like we went through what we would call like equity questions in looking at a new history, social studies curriculum. So that way we could really celebrate the assets that our students bring into the classroom. And the last part is we continually work to celebrate diversity, equity, and inclusion through other means such as like morning meetings, circles. Like that's really the validation process of the assets that our students bring in. So when it's like share what's happening in your life, that helps gives us context to what's important for students. And also our teachers work really hard to bring in wider perspectives in literature.
Well, Oak Grove School District did go ahead. They're an elementary school district and in San Jose, and they did adopt an ethnic studies curriculum. But what they did was they passed a resolution directing the superintendent and the district to create an ethnic studies like advisory committee to integrate ethnic studies into their curriculum, integrate the framework, adopt it to an elementary level, and to work on that. Now, I don't know, I think they have some other systems in place, you know, as far as equity and you know, they pass a lot of resolutions, so they're very active in that way. But they have like, how big are they? They're a big district, you said?
How big are they, Jeremy?
They're now down to 16 schools and roughly 11,000 students.
So for an elementary, thank you. Yeah, like for an elementary school district, they're much larger, but they did it and created it, and you know, perhaps again, like I really am hoping that as we get into the equity work, whatever the equity team comes out of, and they make some recommendations that we can, you know, I mean, my feedback for the district is I would love to see ethnic studies somehow like as part of that equity work. Not saying like to be prescriptive, like I want this in here, but like if that bubbles up, I think that would be an opportunity to do it in a way.
I guess I'd say, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, and more as a lens, it doesn't have to be a particular curriculum that we put there. Is as well, and they also were saying in the last conference I went, is not just like a class that it ends at X or Y hour. It's more like the kind of literature the kids are studying or analyzing is diverse and recognize women, men, and all cultures that were part of the English language that we're teaching. I mean, which are the perspectives that they're reading? It doesn't always have to be only few writers, it's more varied, but it also has to do with the history when we study. Well, I remember that we had a very extensive lessons about the native people of California, but I mean that is, I think what we're looking like, are we really, when we study California, are we getting the whole perspective? When we're studying United States, we're getting the whole perspective. So, and it's not exactly, it's like integrated through a lens in everything they do through a lens.
So I guess what I'd say is two things. One is, you know, if you want to pass a resolution, that's fine, or you can just tell me to do it. You know, that works too.
Yeah.
That's kind of how we do it here. The other thing is, I think if we were to do an audit of everything we're doing, we'd find that we have a pretty robust ethnic studies curriculum, right? We like, well, Christina, you just summarized it.
Yeah, and I'll give an example, like just based on Isabel, what you just shared. So I've been in classrooms the last week, and one of the things that we're always looking for is how representative is the text. So here's some read alouds that I got to listen to. I got to listen to, I think it's Under the Lemon Tree, but like it's a story set in like a Latin American country, and it's about family, but there's Spanish words in the text, and some students were like, yes, I see myself in that text. In another classroom, I got to see like a 2-day set of lessons. So day one was my Tia's birthday, because the unit was about families. So again, like just Tia, Spanish words, like it was representative of a Latin American family background. And then the next day, the story was about when the relatives came, which is a more, I would say, typical, like, or dominant culture story where like relatives come from Virginia into your house, take over, and then they leave. That is more of a funny story then. But just in those classroom visits, we saw representative texts. We saw students be able to share like their background, share how they pronounce words, and also like make connections to their own family histories.
But what we might do is, and I think this speaks to what you're suggesting, Isabel, is assess where we are, because we have like lots of examples of good work, but maybe assess where we are and then be more explicit about what our expectations are around it. Although we're fairly explicit, but like to be clearer would probably send a better message.
Yeah, I think that through the equity walks, they'll be able to get those touch points in and be more informed about a baseline.
Yeah.
And it's a journey, not a destination, which is the reason why a curricular book that gets readopted every 7 years is not going to be the end all be all. It's a journey, it's a process of teacher induction as well as curriculum supports. And because California is a driver for so many curricular publishers, where our voice needs to be is not necessarily at our board table. It needs to be up in Sacramento with the groups that decide what publishing is going to be chosen. We only get to choose from the list that they give us. We need to be more, the SBA needs to be more proactive in letting folks know what it is that we need in order to be successful. So that's my where we need to go from here.
Okay, last thing from me is about family, like a curriculum for families to do with students at home. Like, so whether that's like supporting grade level learning, whether it's, key vocabulary words that they're gonna have, or additional books that like, families can check out from the site libraries or something. Like, have we started to look at, even just, I think one of my first board meetings, Nancy mentioned, I remember like having lists of vocabulary words, and the conversation was, well, you don't want to just give kids vocabulary words or, words like in isolation, because it doesn't work for comprehension. And I appreciate and understand that that's true, but like, because kids learn at different, times and levels, and some kids might need some more reinforcement, like sometimes if there's things like as a resource where families could work on it, like I was privileged enough where I was able to like work with my son's teachers, my son who had some special needs, and like they really were very understanding that like, hey, this thing he's gonna need to break it up into smaller chunks, or we're gonna spend the entire winter break working on it, but it will get done. But it was like, but that's because like I was able to come to the classroom door, and I was able to advocate, and he had an IEP, and it was like this whole thing. Whereas like maybe there's families who would have some time to sit at the kitchen table, or sit down with their child, or do flashcards in the car of words, but they might not know exactly what's going on. Even if the teachers are communicating all the time, like if there was just one place, I think that was Nancy's idea before, but I know some other districts have it, like I think it was Elk Grove had something like that, and
Long Beach.
So there's other places around California who have things like that. And I just was wondering if with family engagement, or as part of like supports or involving community in the learning, if there was like any thought around maybe developing something for families to work with kids. Yes.
Yeah, I think, this is actually reflective of a conversation that the principals that we were having earlier this week, which is around like teachers communicating I mean, I know you said communication, but like the first step is for us to be communicating more regularly with our families around what they may be seeing and how they can work with their child at home. And I typically use early primary examples because they're really tangible and small, so they're good examples. But like if you are learning about community helpers in kindergarten, that the teacher is sharing that with the families and saying, hey, when you're out and about, please like point out community helpers, and that might look like postal workers, firefighters, our first responders, like our grocery store workers. So like to make the connection between learning, because we also know that families, like you said, all have different ranges of like capacity of support at home. So that's one piece. And then the other part is like giving concrete, tangible things that families can do directly connected to the learning that's happening in the classroom. So for example, if a student, sometimes it's like, oh, a student's working on all the letter sounds. That's a lot of letters for a small child. So we might group that into like a smaller chunk, and that the teacher tells the parent, here are the 5 sounds we're working on. Can you please work on these in this way at home? And it might look like this. But it is more customized as opposed to like, here's the curriculum that we're teaching. But it's an interesting idea that I think we can look at from Elk Grove and Long Beach.
Yeah, or like maybe just, I think it's pretty much organized by grade level. Like, you know, the back to school nights sometimes, I didn't see it this year, but sometimes instead of having individual teachers, so it'd be like, you get to look at, and all the 3rd grade teachers talk to you, and they do it together. I think on Zoom last year, some of the grade levels did that. As well. But the idea is like, hey, we're all doing this, and like we are gonna cover these topics, and here's some things. And then like as they get through the year, those sections go live. You know?
Yeah. So a couple things I forgot to mention, because we do many things in Sunnyvale. Like we're working with Aaliyah to identify like key teaching themes in each grade level in the 4 core content areas to send out to parents. So that way they have a broad overview of the year. We're also coming up on conferences, family home conferences. So this is also, our principals have been working with our teachers to gear up so that way that conversation is productive in terms of identifying strengths, but also here's a next step. And I know that several schools this year are looking to bring back family education, family engagement events. So those were opened at the tail end of last year with COVID restrictions, but we're really looking for like grade level, we're looking forward to things like grade level teams hosting a parent night on like a specific topic to build that relationship with parents, but also to demonstrate games that they can play at home, ways to read at home, like reading strategies at home, etc.
Yeah, just imagine that they don't have somebody who's like trolling Barnes and Noble for everything on Native Americans, you know? I mean, like they just need to know. So,
of course.
Okay, well, I mean,
yeah, no, about the family, yeah, as you say, the family curriculum. I just remember I was talking with a teacher. She teaches in a public school in Alum Rock, but I think she said it was a middle school. I'm not sure if she said it was a charter, I don't remember, but she was talking that one of the main things they were doing was to engage the families. They had one parent-teacher conference at middle school every semester. So they met 3 times a year, and they went over everything they were doing with the kids. And in that way, they found that, I mean, that was a very good way to keep the kids out of trouble, engage in the classrooms, and move forward. But yeah, I don't know if we have that capacity. We don't even have parents teacher.
yeah, we're having them this next week, right?
Mm-hmm.
But not at middle school.
At elementary.
Nancy? Oh, Nancy,
Yeah, aren't we over time?
Yeah, we're a couple minutes over time, but we're not, we're saying that we were not putting a block on this because it was gonna be shorter and we were just gonna run through the meeting, but then we talked longer, so. I didn't really.
I'm just wanted to have that time check in, that's all.
Excellent, okay. So anything else on this topic for Jeff? No? Okay. Well, thank you, everybody, and thanks, Christina, Ms. Valentine, really appreciate it.
Of course.
And do you want like a 5-minute break before we go into the next, or should we just roll through? It's kind of a short agenda, but it's up to you. Should we roll?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. And we are on to item 4, comments from the board and superintendent. So we can go down the line. Nancy, do you want to start?
Yes, I've been involved with the local planning council, doing work as a member of their executive committee, and looking at what's important to know is that the state every 5 years does a special needs assessment, and we're going to be implementing that this year. We'd love to be able to engage with the parent community of kids not yet in school, to see where they're going for their child, meeting their child care needs. A lot has changed with the pandemic, and it'll be interesting to see how all of this information unfolds. I've also been doing work with the Legislative Action Committee, and those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Isabel?
Yes. Well, we've been working with different agencies, Bridget and I, Trustee Watson and I, working towards helping the situation of homeless minors inside our district. And we're gonna start, keep moving forward with tours around all the other family facilities in the area, because kids from around come to our city. They need to improve. We started Leadership Sunnyvale, which is a very dense, whole, 10 months curriculum, and it's involving different agencies, including our agencies, to work together towards a better city and a better goal. But of course, our main interest is about how to strengthen the relationship with other agencies in the favor of our kids. And we have been going to all the back to schools that have been possible. Last night was, for example, Columbia Middle School. It was very, very good. And the introduction that Mr. Paul did was very cool, how he brings the teachers on stage. We've been, Cherry Chase, SMS, among others. Then I've been, we've been meeting with other districts now that we were talking about curriculum. And I've been talking with them also about their experience with this program that is called YCP, actually, I found the name, for the cinematic experience, but also about other programs and curriculums like debate and speech for kids. And there was even Conga Kids that was very interesting, as a SEL art and dance program. We also been talking with, we started working on Hoffman's Award, which is gonna be starting next month. And we started working on something else. Well, I think that's, yeah, there was something else. Oh yeah, and we went to the State of the City, where also our teacher of the year got recognized, and it was a very fruitful meeting. Actually, we made a lot of connections, one of them with the art department in the city. We're gonna start talks to see how we can integrate more murals and more art into our schools, and can integrate it also as a part of involving the kids and the community in it, and they have fun ideas. So let's see where this takes us. We don't still know anything, but we are talking with them to see how we can work it out. Other things that we talk with them, we're talking about transportation, and we're gonna be studying more in-depth transportation, but we're also talking with the mayor and with other agencies about how to work the transportation from the north side of the district to middle school and then in the future, so when they get to high school. So that, busy couple of weeks.
Yeah, busy weeks. So I guess I sent in my comments. There's a few things, there's a few notes in there for trustees, like, but I did want to thank Mike again for speaking at our upcoming SCCSBA meeting on cultivating a positive district culture. So I'm very excited
It's like a
about.
month away, right?
It's the end of the month. It's this month.
Oh, it's next
September.
week? Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I'll be ready.
next Wednesday.
I'll be ready.
So thanks. Thank you. And then we're gonna start up the in-person lunches where it's kind of, you buy your own lunch and then you can talk to people from all around the county for SCCSBA for the first Friday of the month at noon. This month it's gonna be at OPA in Campbell. And then Sodexo and Region 5 and Region 20 are all co-hosting a mixer for trustees and school staff who want to drop in, and they're having a taco bar, and it's at the same place as last year, so I'm very excited
Talking
about
about
that.
AEC.
At AEC,
At AEC.
yeah, December 1st. And the Ledge Action Committee is we're presenting at AEC this year, so like, why have a legislative action committee? How to put one together, what we did, so that's kind of exciting. And we are, we're sending out the survey again, so we'd like all the trustees to fill that in if they have time, just so we can understand what your take is on priorities. Fall dinner flyer is gonna come out soon. Please let Mike and Jesus know if you wanna go. And Ledge Brunch will probably be hybrid because we get more people to attend if they can come. And it'll be in February, so winter. And and also almost everyone I've been talking to, like around town, when we're meeting at all these other events, most of the families I've talked to Mike, but just so the other trustees in this meeting know, well, the biggest concern seems to be around transportation. So it's real exciting. I've told them a number of times that we're working on it for within our district and that we're collaborating and things like that. And then, one last thing, for SCCSBA, we're putting together, it'll probably be a 2-part safety meeting. It'll be hybrid as well in January, and we're talking about school safety. I think that Monte Vista had a safety incident yesterday. It was just a scare, but they evacuated Monte Vista and they evacuated Lincoln Middle School. And so, school safety is just top of mind anyway. And it'll have a focus on gun violence prevention. So that's kind of the focus of the first one in January. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Okay, a couple quick items. One, we're making a major effort right now to ramp back up with volunteers. And it's like a whole set of systems that we laid dormant for a couple of years, and so now we're bringing them back up. And so some of the pieces associated with that is TB tests, and we're looking at ways to streamline that, the records of it, so that we can be, really reduce barriers to parents participating because of that. And the other piece is fingerprinting. And we're recognizing from principals, we've got a lot of input from them and from our site visit at Vargas yesterday, around kind of 3 areas that are barriers for fingerprints. One is the cost that we can help with, but we have to look at that. Accessibility, so if a parent wants to participate and needs to be fingerprinted, getting them to the spot where they can be fingerprinted. So just that sort of accessibility. And the last big piece is around equity, like everything else we look at. We don't want to create so many barriers, or we want to eliminate barriers to participation for families. And there's many families that would be reluctant to participate because of the fingerprinting requirement. So we're looking at those 3 areas and ramping it all back up with best practices in mind, and also with an idea of continuous improvement.
Can I just clarify a question?
Sure.
Fingerprinting is for people who are alone with children.
People who are alone with students.
With students.
And that leads me to the next one, which is Executive Cabinet is going to attend a sort of a liability summit, if you will, for lack of a better term, next week. There's an enormous amount of concern around district liability. You've probably seen in the news, different school districts that have had verdicts found against them that are frankly just debilitating to the district. They go far beyond whatever the insurance will cover, so it's right out of the general fund of school districts. So we're going to be learning more about that, doing everything we can, of course, to prevent incidents, but also to limit our liability should incidents occur. And anyway, so you're going to be hearing more about that. And so that goes with the fingerprinting, which unfortunately it's just a challenge. Just quickly met with Eileen Lee, our future board member, a couple times. We've gone on tours of Columbia Middle School and Cherry Chase, met with the principals of both those schools. Met her out at Lakewood at a barbecue, and she's just very engaged. Oh, she was at the State of the City, as you know. And I feel like she's doing everything right to hit the ground as running as possible, if that's a phrase. And I've kind of assured her that it's a team, but she's really going to be well prepared. The last thing I'd say is there's some changes in the legislation coming after the first of the year around remote meetings. So the legislation that's allowing us to have remote meetings as we are right now today is expiring, and it's going to be replaced with a new legislation that we're studying that will be more incident related. So if a particular board member has a particular emergency, then under certain conditions, we can go remote. But there's a huge amount of barriers at the school district level. So if we do everything we're doing now, we'll be fine in terms of YouTube and Zoom. But if any of those things go down when we're declaring a remote meeting, we have to stop the meeting. So we're going to be studying more on that. I'm sure there'll be a lot more at AEC. But basically, it's going to be shifting. There's going to be a significant shift after the first of the year. We'll learn more about that. That's all I have.
I have a question. Do the parents also need to do that online class, AB 5 or 6 or 6?
No.
What's the number? No.
Okay, thank you. So we're on to item 5, comments from the Sunnyvale Education Association. If there's an official representative online, please use the raised hand feature if you wish to speak. Okay, seeing none. Item 6, comments from the California School Employees Association. If there's an official representative online, please use the raised hand feature if you wish to speak. And item 7, comments from the public. This is a time to comment about things not on the agenda. This portion of the agenda provides an opportunity for members of the public to directly address the governing board on any item of interest to the public. However, provisions of the Brown Act Government Code 54954.2a and .3 preclude any action being taken on any item not appearing on the posted agenda. In plain speaking terms, the board can only receive information during this time. We cannot speak to or about items that are not on our agenda. If there's any member of the public who would like to speak to an item not on the agenda, please use the raised hand feature now. Okay, seeing none. Item 8, presentations. AA is the Sunnyvale School District substitute update with Jeremy Ishihara, Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources, and Mary Beth Allman, Director of Human Resources. Thank you.
Yes, good evening board, good evening online viewers. Tonight we are here to present the recording is in progress. This is the substitute and it's turning into an annual presentation on substitutes updates. But again, my name is Jeremy Nishihara. I'm the Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources and Information Services, and
Mary Beth Allman, Director of Human Resources.
And we will be jointly presenting to you tonight about this very important topic. All right, substitutes in schools is, I guess, a tale that's old as time. It's a reality that every school district is dealing with. I'm sure all of us experienced substitutes when we were going through school. So one way to look at it is, how do you find a body to put in front of the classroom? However, our job here is in human resources, we took the challenge and we're really approaching how do we have substitutes as a tool to really offer quality instruction for 181 days of instruction in the Sunnyvale School District. So we want to start off with some surprising statistics. These are from the Substantial Classroom book, the redesigning of the substitute teaching experience that we reference to as we try to do everything kind of research-based and database. So at any given moment, and this is all pre-pandemic statistics, so it's just something to keep in mind. I think we're really trying to compare ourselves back to where we were prior just because of the anomaly that it was. At any given moment, 10% of teachers standing in front of the US classrooms are substitute teachers. 90% of those substitutes, the district offers 4 hours or less of training for subs. And as we told you last year, we do better than that, at least twice as much professional development for our substitutes. And Mary Beth will talk about our permanent subs, obviously have way more because these are certificated permanent employees with the district. And then the average sub coverage rate across the country is 80%. So that means, and again, this is their quote, I don't mean to mansplain this to you, that for every 100 subs requested, 80 subs are actually placed in the classroom. And so that is, that gap really is impact on the school sites on a daily basis. So we started looking at this back in the 1920 school year, and it really used to be approached as if, are we paying our subs enough? However, it really is kind of this function of, do we have the individuals, are they trained? Compensation is a piece of it, but also how much are we utilizing them for both for our own professional development needs within the district, looking at statistics and data to make sure we have enough to cover, when there's leaves and personal necessity, et cetera. So it's not just, do we pay ourselves enough? So in the 2019-20 school year, we really dove into the Substantial Classroom book. They are reinventing substitutes. And it's really an interesting read in the sense that they apply the design thinking concept, so which is something that with our spirit of innovation this year, it's interesting to go back and kind of read that through that lens and just see how they utilize that. So that year we expanded our recruitment efforts. Our fantastic substitute wrangler is Eileen Conway. So she started to actually go in person to PTA meetings and other parent groups to just say, hey, would you like to be a part of the Sunnyvale School District subpool? We contracted with Swing Subs. Those were kind of the Uber of subs at the time, and it was groundbreaking. And in the sense that we would post jobs, different substitutes could pick it up on an app, accept the job, and then show up at the school site. And then contracted with Substantials about their program called Subplans. This was a byproduct of their Substantial Classroom, which is a tool that assists and removes friction from when the substitute shows up at the site. It's a platform where the emergency lesson plans are in place. There's information about the school, maps, logistics, bell schedule, all of that is in one place in order to allow the substitute to focus on substitute teaching. Then 2021 hit, and this was our virtual year. So we were able to provide a la carte professional development on the virtual tools, and that was a huge pivot and a great collaboration with the curriculum instruction department and some of our fantastic teachers who were very proficient in online teaching. And then provided we contracted with a Substantial to provide a community of practice series through webinars, but this is part of that professional development where substitutes were able to take in specific courses on the practice of substitute teaching to focus and provide them and make them, I guess, more proficient in their craft. So that was 2021. Now I'm going to hand it over to Mary Beth.
All right, so 21-22, this was last year. We did get some support from the state of California to increase the sub pool, or they waived the waiting period for recent retirees to sub. That's now expired, but that helped us out a little bit last year. And they extended the sub certificate from 30 days to 60 days, and that's still in place. That was renewed, so that's helped us out a little bit. And so that was last year that started, and it's continued this year. Last year, we also increased the rate of pay, and we did more substantial sub-school professional development. So they moved what's called sub-school, where they have online modules that substitutes can take at their own pace and at their own time. So they moved all of their PD to online modules, and all of our subs that onboard with us have automatic access to those modules. Then additional support, we increased our swing sub contract, and we contracted for 10 subs. We didn't always get 10 subs from them every day, but we did increase the contract, just we were trying to find subs wherever we could last year. And then we actually used our TOSAs and our site coaches. We had them sign up on an on-call sub calendar, and they were instrumental in keeping us afloat last year through some of the really heavy sub days. So that's how we were kind of increasing our sub pool from a variety of in a variety of ways last year to cover the huge sub needs that we had with all of the COVID absences. So our challenges from last year, this is a chart that shows our filled versus unfilled vacancies. So the red, that's where those had to be filled by TOSAs or coaches or principals or assistant principals, or sometimes classrooms combining. Okay, so that was a huge challenge last year. And that's why I say we really leaned in on the sites, but it had a huge impact. If we're talking about focusing on instruction, it had an impact in that the folks that are to focus on instruction, the TOSAs, the site administrators were often being pulled for these reasons so that we had someone in the classroom. So what we do now, our layers of support, is we took some of the lessons from previous years and we've kind of put them all together. And the first thing is we're continuing our recruitment and retention efforts. So we still compare our pay to other districts and we're still competitive. We have sub schools. We're again supporting with sub schools. That's continuing. This year, for the first time, we have sub plans deployed at all sites. So now that all subs, wherever they go in our district, they have a consistent template. So they know exactly, they have all the information that they need and they know where to find it, just to make things easier for subs and for if principals have to go into, or coaches have to go in, they know that information too. Our big change this year is the addition of permanent floating subs. So we've hired 10 total permanent subs, certificated subs. These are all credentialed substitutes, 1 specifically for preschool, 4 for elementary. So we have 1 permanent sub that's primarily at 2 sites. They have a homeschool, and we base this on who had the highest number of unfilled vacancies in the previous years. So they have a homeschool where they report every day, and then they have a companion school. And so we really try to focus on 2 schools so they get to know those staffs, they get to know those students. They can still be deployed at other schools if needed, but they're primarily housed just at those 2 sites. At the middle school, we have 3. We have 2 dedicated at SMS and 1 at CMS. And then we have 2 special ed floaters. So we have 10 certificated, trained, highly trained folks that are now supporting our classrooms, and we have unfilled vacancies. In addition, we do have some permanent swing subs. So we had 1 per site. So middle school had the highest number of unfilled vacancies. Those are harder to fill. And so we just increased that by having swing subs that we can keep or take away as needed. And our independent study teachers, because right now they have a little bit lower caseload, so they are available to sub on Mondays and Fridays. And they weren't needed when we first submitted this, and we activated it. Last week was the first time we needed to activate them. So, and then TOSAs, scheduled sub days, we haven't needed them yet. So we know that we can still add that on-call calendar if needed, but we wanted to try and protect that as much as we could so that we can, again, keep the focus on instruction where it needs to be. So the goal for all of this and the impact up through this time is we're, have a dedicated and trained sub pool. These subs are attending all of the, they're certificated subs are attending all the professional development that all of our teachers are receiving. Keeping administration and TOSAs focused on instruction. The school site staff, front offices are appreciative of not that morning scramble all the time. And permanent subs are providing additional services on days, the rare day that they're not called to sub somewhere, they're able to step into a classroom and provide additional support for students. They also are helping us to fill long-term sub positions that we can't fill. So for example, we have a maternity leave position coming up that we haven't been able to find a long-term sub for. So we're able to place one of our permanent subs in that classroom. And so that there'll be a nice continuum of learning for those students. And just to show a chart of our total need and total filled and unfilled, you can see the pool coverage and the swing subs, what they've covered, what our permanent subs have covered. Again, this was through the 16th. And as of last Friday, we had no unfilled. We might have had one this week, but we got it filled quickly with one of our permanent subs. So sometimes we've had a couple last minute call-ins this week that were uncovered for a bit. But then we were able to deploy our subs and rework our sub plan to deploy them. So that's having 0 unfilled. And we know that that necessarily won't stay that way forever, but at least it will be, you know, we were kind of looking at the list the other day and saying, what would happen? Like we were scrambling trying to find one sub. Like what if it was 10? Because it would have been 10 or 11 if we didn't have this in place. So that's been the impact so far. So, but we still are trying to build our sub pool. So anyone who's out there listening, if you want to sub, let us know. We'll be at the classified job fair this weekend too to recruit classified staff and substitutes for classified, which is our next big challenge is substitutes for classified. So yeah, any questions?
Well, before we have questions, it's time for public comment really quick.
Sure.
So if there's a member of the public who would like to make a comment on this topic, please use the raise hand feature. Seeing none, I have a clarifying question. I would like to hear the story again about Mike's substitute teaching.
Would you like me to tell it? Are you going to tell the story?
Why don't you tell? Because I don't know the backstory. I just know that they sent me to a classroom.
Yeah, so we had so Mike was principal for the day because of the equity walks, and so we had a sub deployed to that that was a late call in, and so we had one of our permanent subs deployed, but then didn't realize that they had been deployed elsewhere. They couldn't do it, so they had to have someone else step in, and that was Dr. Gallagher. So Dr. Gallagher was a sub until we were able to move some things around and kind of shuffle some of the priorities and send someone else his way. So yeah.
It was not a bad, it was a good experience actually.
Great.
It didn't hurt anyone to see what goes on in an SBC classroom for an extended period of time. It was good.
It has been nice. So for the last minute, like I think at Ellis a couple of days where we had some last minute call-ins and, you know, where we thought we were covered and then suddenly had 3 unfilled absences. So to be able to just go, okay, here's 3 people to go there. It's nice.
Okay, board, any questions or comments? No? I had 2 quick ones. One was, you know, I know someone who's a very highly educated person, but their degree is like in like a very specific field. So imagine someone who has a master's degree, but it's like, you know, different than whatever. And they have their own business and they're like a super volunteer, but there's like the CBEST just like kind of freaks them out. And so I'm wondering, like, I've talked to a number of parents and the CBEST is sort of a barrier to subbing, and they are volunteers. They've been in classrooms all the time. Like, you know, I can imagine like lots of parents who volunteered in my classroom would be great subs. But they go, oh, well, you know, you have to go take this test and it's intimidating. And I've explained that the math on that test is pizza math, which I can do and I'm sure they can do. But there are some like few things that you want to refresh on. But the idea of going in and taking a test is intimidating. And then they say the option is you can look at your coursework from when you're in college and like they're feeling, that makes them feel quite old because they don't still have their coursework from college, right? Like they don't know what they took in college. So my question is there a way, well, yes, you have your BA. Is there a way where you can say like, hey, if you went to this university, you've got like, you know, you went to San Francisco State or San Jose State or whatever, you meet the requirements because they made you take the classes that you need. So they wouldn't even have to like panic about not having a transcript. And like, we could just say like, yes, if you went to San Jose State and you graduated with a BA, you definitely have met the requirements for a CBEST, so come on over. Like, is there any tool like that for us, or?
There's 2 things. It's specific in terms of we don't make these rules, they come from the county, so there's specific guidelines. But the good news is, and this came to us after we sent in this presentation, they did pass a bill, I'm not sure what it was, but something that said that starting January, and I don't remember if it's for 6 months or if it's for a year, but you no longer have to take the CBEST to sub, again, because they're trying to remove barriers for subbing. So that will be huge. We just have to now publicize that once that becomes, we can't do it yet, but starting in January we can. So, yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Okay, and then my other teeny tiny question is just like when we have the sub pool, like do we have like, do most of the people in the sub pool sign up to sub for, like do we have enough subs for our STC classes? Or is that a challenge, just like it's a challenge with, you know?
It's a challenge. So we have some that love the STC classes that are kind of our go-tos, but there are a few of those. So it is a challenge to fill, which is why we had 2 dedicated permanent special ed substitutes. So yeah, that is still a challenge. And like I said, we have a few that are, that's their preference, but it's few. So those are the harder ones to find. I'd say SDC and middle school are the hardest ones to find, and preschool, the hardest to find, and elementary, and K through now. Other than that, we're covered. Yeah, no, those are challenging. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board? Okay, well, no, well, no, Nancy? I can't see. Are you raising your hand? No. Okay. Did you see?
No, I
something?
just
Okay.
moved
Okay.
on.
Okay, great. So, well, thank you very much. Really appreciate the presentation, all the work that went into it. It was very clear, very easy to understand, and it's so exciting that we're getting things covered. So,
yeah,
thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, we are on to review and discussion. So, is that right? Did I miss something? Wait.
Review and discussion.
Review and discussion. Oh, and I just left it off my thing. So, it is the land review and discussion of land acknowledgement, item 9. And that is Dr. Dean.
Good evening, board. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. And community members, tonight we're going to talk a little bit about discussion of a land acknowledgement for our district. Our school teams last year started this process. We did a bit of research with regards to what that would mean, research about what would go into one, and then, you know, kind of acknowledging the different groups that are in our particular county and area. And so this evening, with the materials that you have, we just would like to provide you a protocol. The documentation that you've received is kind of a longer version with documentation to kind of support the vision and the rationale for the statement and some details. And then some of that material also does include aspects of what we could at a later time, based upon your discussion this evening, come back with kind of what that exact paragraph might be. And then ultimately, as you go through that, those materials this evening and have a discussion, we'd like to look at potentially a recommendation of maybe placing that following the Pledge of Allegiance and considering that for other type meetings within our district throughout the year. And so the materials are there for the acknowledgement and the work that we've kind of done over the past year and have been integrating in different places within our school programs this year.
Thank you. If there's any member of the public who would like to speak on this item, please use the raise hand feature now. Okay, seeing none, board, who would like to begin with discussion?
So I'll begin. I'm really excited that this came up through the process of the equity group, because that's what we're looking for in this entire process, to acknowledge areas of unmet need. And this is certainly one of them. I'm very mindful and appreciative that I'm not the first person to share this space in Sunnyvale, and that there were people here long before my peoples came to this land. So I appreciate the process of beginning to have that reflection be a part of our culture. And I appreciate all the work that you brought to that. rather than necessarily get into wordsmithing tonight per se, I would like to, I see that there's opportunity for two different types of processes. One might be a longer statement that could be a part of a more of a ceremony or statement that may happen in an annual opportunity at different sites and at the board room. But I would like to have a short, practical, maybe 3 sentences that can be easily understood by non-native English speakers that would explain the why, acknowledge our indigenous peoples here, and be able to give thanks. So that's kind of my overall, in a nutshell, kind of setting. And I'd like to be able to model that so that the words that we use can be used in other developmentally appropriate settings in classrooms, could be adopted later by PTA, PTO groups, just to have that be a model that could be taken out throughout our community.
Thank you for that, Nancy. We can definitely make note of some of those, and thank you for that input.
Yeah, I appreciate your references, and I really like the Santa Clara University short version, because it had.
And I do want to emphasize that this was a team process by our equity lead last year, and working with Christina Ballantyne in the group as well. So it was definitely a group and a department effort bringing this forth.
So thank you.
Yeah, so yeah, I like it a lot. We were reviewing it also in package review, and yes, this could be something that we could write and have maybe somewhere published and as part of what we believe. And maybe in some special events, it should be highlighted exactly as this high, as this leg. But yes, we also were talking like not as short as sometimes is done, but something between this and a little phrase, maybe the same length of the Pledge of Allegiance or something that we could say that during the meetings that has the same essence and is well informed and is very sensible. But yeah, it can be told in 1-2 minutes.
Yeah, and I think there's things that we could work with here, and I just want to give a shout out to Tasha and Christina with the equity statement from last go around, because I'm sure whatever this all came up with, this was a team effort from the district, but then I'm sure if we propose, there's a few sentences that jump out at me that I think could synergize and that I would propose that we would say, but just by proposing them, I'm sure that you could go work your magic on it and then come back and tell us why it's horrible, why we totally did it wrong, and but in a really nice way, and explain to us, and just educate us on our why we should choose these other ones. So I'm just gonna put out the ones that I thought, but I'm not super beholden to them. So if you feel other ones, maybe there's a discussion about why we're not using some over the others, but just for the purposes of I agree. I think this whole thing, I agree with Nancy and Isabel. I think this whole thing could be read or a version of it at larger meetings, and it could be published, much like our equity statement. But the smaller pieces that I thought were really important and very clear would be on page 3, where it just says, like the very first sentence of page 3, where it says, Sunnyvale School District is located on the ancestral and unceded land of the Muwekma Ohlone tribe. And then perhaps we could go either, we could skip like the rest of that. Well, actually, initially I thought maybe we could say the second sentence also. We honor the Ohlone people who for thousands of years inhabited this land, peacefully cared for it in a way that honored the land. Okay, I think there needs to be one more and in there, but that's okay. Okay, so sentences 1 and 2, and then I was thinking if we kind of skipped down to slide 5, where it says, either all of slide 5 or just the last sentence, which is actually a long sentence. But it says, I think it's really important to say we acknowledge our responsibility to learn from the wisdom of the Ohlone people and of their ancestors, and to be motivated to thoughtfully consider how we might work to repair those injustices and move forward together in honorable ways. Because I can see where it will be important to talk about the historical and continuous displacement of people, but I feel like by mentioning injustices, it's there, but it's very positive. So I'm okay with anything. I too would like a short statement, like 3 or 4 sentences long. And it doesn't have to be exactly as long as the Pledge of Allegiance, but we are gonna do both. And I would love for the district to come back with us, like maybe, and give us a suggestion of how we might place it in the meeting. Like it wouldn't be something we would all recite chorally, I would imagine, but like maybe one of the, like maybe the vice president or the clerk could read it, or people, we could take turns reading it, or, like
Just a different voice.
a different voice each time, like whatever you think would do it justice and would make it part of the procedure of the meeting. If that would be my hope. Anyone have any thoughts on that, or?
And I mean, adding it like this or something like this to, the equity statement, publishing, I don't know if making it, there's a place in our handbook or something that we can state something similar about what we believe, or we feel like some version of this. And I like make it as, very constant in everything we do. Yeah.
That'll be in the January revision.
Yeah.
It will go in next year's handbook. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, taking note of that so we don't forget.
But yeah, so like, would this be something that we could bring back for review and discussion next time, like a draft of it and like a recommendation for placement? Because I think that's.
Well, would you want it to be review and action or review and discussion? Could be either way.
Oh, review and action. I think it's pretty close.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I don't know how much time they will need to put in and publish out.
Sure. Well, we can work with Mike on that. It doesn't have to be the exact next meeting, but soon.
So the other
It's mostly done.
Yeah. So the other thing is doing research itself, a lot of county offices and school districts, when they put this out, also have a curriculum. Let's talk about curriculum again. Curriculum that goes with this to give more than the natural touch points, to be able to give an explanation of why we would do this in a classroom. And then those touch points can go deeper as they actually meet standards. But I think being able to have a curriculum that would developmentally appropriately explain a why to students in a classroom of why we would want to do this would be a future goal for me.
Okay.
And I was at the De Young Museum? I was at one of the museums and they have a really nice land acknowledgement as you walk into the museum. And it's just part of the hallway as you enter into the museum. It's on the wall. And, you know, there's some words in the concrete and there's just like this design across the wall. And like that, as you know, if only Brant were here right now. But I mean, like, we could really, I think that it's something like, if we say, hey, we're doing this, like, how can we get equity and like, and make land acknowledgement and make equity visible in our district? So let's think about it.
Take that back.
Or maybe when the art people come, you know, like maybe that's part of, you know, like the criteria for them or something, so. I don't know.
Okay.
Jeff, what are your thoughts on this?
I mean, I agree with everything that everybody said, with the exception of, I mean, if we're talking about the why we're doing this, you know, I'm starting to wonder, I don't know how wise it is to edit any of this down. I mean, if we're going to acknowledge and we're trying to, the whole point of what we're saying, there's a lot of information and it takes time and it's not supposed to be a convenient message. So I don't know if we should make it a convenient message for time wise. If we're going to do it, you know, I was wondering why we are worried about.
If I can add a little bit here. So the main purpose is to do the acknowledgement, is to honor the space. And so do that a more, I guess, spiritual way, for lack of a better word. The longer contents that you have in the document kind of comes with not just handing that out or giving that out. So last year, Christina actually presented this content to our principals with the idea, and our instructional leadership team, kind of doing exactly what you're stating, is just kind of going over why we're doing this, what does it mean? And so educating ourselves as well as a part of the process. Our longer term goal is to do some of the things that you've talked about, you know, integrating where it's appropriate to do so. For example, as a part of our district presentations and PDs and things of that. So there are some things being planned and thought about, but we just want to do it in the appropriate way and be sure we're not making it just the thing, but that it keeps the positive intent, which is what we're trying to accomplish.
And at the all staff back to school, it was much shorter than this. Like it was like just a sentence or two. So I think what we're saying is something in between that gets the message about, you know, the why, and you know, because you know we don't. But if you want to do the whole thing, I'm okay with doing the whole thing.
I mean, this is just.
I understand.
Yeah, I'm a history person, and I always have a hard time, you know, summarizing things. So I always think everything's important. Right. So, I mean, and this is a pretty powerful statement. It's kind of hard to edit that down. So
yeah,
I think we will be able to come with a version that keeps the intent, but also allows, you know, for deeper reading and understanding when anyone wants and needs it as well.
Christina?
I don't know if you want to offer any information.
Sure.
So part of the original intent of the 3 slides, was to give a sorry, I wasn't prepared to come up, to give a complete picture of like our relationship to the land, respecting like what did occur in history, acknowledging that things did occur, but also that the Muwekma and the Ohlone are still vibrant communities, because I think sometimes there can be a portrayal of like Indigenous peoples not existing anymore, and Indigenous peoples are very much a part of our community to this day. So that was part of it, and I think the next step from this was to create like a version that worked in conjunction. So we had 2 that might fit into like different meeting formats in different places. So that way we would have a longer statement that would give context, that would help build understanding, which is why all these resources were linked here. And then we'd also have a shorter one to build from this, that we wouldn't use one without the other, that we would use them both. That's helpful context.
Thank you. And I think also in one of those resources in here, it talks about it's a living land acknowledgement. And so, and the purpose of a living land acknowledgement is to get feedback from the tribe and to build relationships with those people. So not just to acknowledge the history, but to
It's a bridge.
out to the community, right?
Right.
So, you know, it'll be interesting to see if we can continue to try to reach out to them and get their feedback at some point. But I don't want that to stop anything. I don't want it to preclude doing it because we're close.
Absolutely.
Well, great. Any other comments? No? Okay, well, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you, Dr. Dean.
Thank you.
So we're on to item 10, the consent agenda. And any item on the consent agenda is subject to review and discussion prior to being approved by the board. If necessary, any items may be removed for separate action. The public may address the board regarding any item on the consent agenda. If there's any member of the public who would like to speak on any item on the consent agenda, please use the raise hand feature now. Nope, seeing none, board, would anyone like to pull an item? Or make a motion?
I move to approve the consent agenda items.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, the consent agenda is passed. Thank you, everyone. Our next item 11, our future meetings. Our next meeting is Thursday, October 6th, 2022 at 6 p.m. at the district office. Thank you. After what? Oh, this meeting is adjourned at 8:01.
Just remember the lights.
Yeah.
When are gonna be there?
Thank you.